Hi everybody, and welcome to our module on pedigrees. A pedigree is a visual representation of a family, and pedigrees are often used when analyzing or studying single gene disorders. A pedigree is a visual representation of how the gene is passed down through generations, and some members have disease and some members are carriers. And there are several typical patterns of genes that you should know for the USMLE Step 1 exam. These include autosomal recessive genes, autosomal dominant genes, and X-linked genes, and we'll go through all of these in this video now. Pedigrees use symbols to indicate whether a member of a family is male or female, whether that person is affected or unaffected by disease, and also to indicate whether individuals are married or are children of other members of the family. Unaffected males and females are indicated by either a white box or a white circle. Affected males and females are indicated by either a black box or a black circle. Marriage is indicated by a line between two people, and children are indicated by a line coming down from a particular marriage or union. Let's start by talking about pedigrees for autosomal recessive conditions. In these disorders, there are usually two alleles for a gene. One allele is usually denoted by a capital letter, like capital letter A. That's the normal allele. And then there is a disease gene, which is usually denoted by a lowercase letter, like lowercase a in this example here. And only homozygotes for the disease gene, in other words, only individuals with two copies of the disease gene, will develop disease. So this is what a pedigree might look like for a family that has a gene for an autosomal recessive condition present in the family. First of all, note that there is an affected female up here at the top and an affected male down at the bottom. So this condition is affecting both males and females. Notice also that relatively few people have disease, and that's typical of recessive conditions. Because the gene is recessive, most people will either not have it or be carriers, but only a small number of people will inherit two copies of the disease gene and develop disease. Notice something else. Both of these individuals here do not have disease, but they are both carriers. The reason I can infer that from this pedigree is because they have a child who has disease. The only way a child is going to get disease is if they inherit one copy of the disease gene from each parent. Therefore, each of these parents must be carriers of the disease gene. So let's drill down on that in a little bit more detail. If both parents are carriers, in other words, if both parents are heterozygous and have one healthy gene and one disease gene, then the four possible combinations of genes that may occur in the offspring are shown in this 2x2 table on the slide. The mother has the potential to pass along a healthy gene or a disease gene to her offspring. The father similarly has a chance to pass along a healthy gene or a disease gene. This means that 25% or 1 in 4 of the offspring will have two disease genes and will therefore develop disease. 1 in 4 or 25% of the offspring will also inherit two healthy alleles and be completely normal and not be a carrier. And then 50% of the offspring, or 2 out of 4, will be a carrier for the disease and will have one healthy allele and one disease allele. And I've summarized these points on the slide. The child can have disease, only 1 in 4 chance of a child with disease. 2 of 4 children will be carriers, and 1 of 4 children will not be carriers. Another way of thinking about this is that the mother has a 50% chance of giving the disease gene A to a child. She has two genes, and for each one there's a 50% chance she passes it on to her child. Similarly, the father has a 50% chance of giving the disease gene A to one of his children. Therefore, the chance that a child inherits two copies of the disease allele is 0.5 times 0.5, or 0.25, which is 25%, or 1 in 4, as we said before. And the reason it's helpful to think of it that way is because sometimes we don't know whether the mother or father are carriers, but we know the carrier frequency within a population. So let's suppose we know that the mother comes from a population where 1 in 50 individuals is a carrier of the disease gene. Let's suppose we also know that the father comes from another population where the incidence of carriers is 1 in 100. This means the chance that both the mother and father are carriers is 1 in 100 times 1 in 50, which is 1 in 5,000. Those two individuals then have a 25% chance of passing the disease on to their offspring. Therefore, the chance that a child of this marriage becomes affected is 1/4 of 1 in 5,000, which equals 1 out of 20,000. And you are sometimes given genetics problems where the risk of being a carrier is known like this, and you have to calculate them using the example I've shown on the screen here as a model. Let me make some more general points about autosomal recessive pedigrees. Some of these I mentioned earlier. In an autosomal recessive pedigree, males and females are typically affected equally. There are relatively few family members who have disease, and there are often many generations that go by without disease. And then finally, there's an increased risk of disease if a child is the result of consanguinity. Consanguinity is when parents are related and share common ancestors. If this happens, there's an increased risk that the two parents may both carry a recessive gene that runs in that family, and therefore there's an increased risk that a child will be born with that recessive condition. On this slide, I've listed just a few examples of autosomal recessive conditions. These include cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, hemochromatosis, Wilson's disease, and there are many, many other examples of autosomal recessive diseases. Now let's talk about autosomal dominant disorders. In these disorders, the disease gene can dominate over a no disease gene. So usually there are two alleles for a gene in these disorders, just like in autosomal recessive. In this case, we'll call the capital A allele the disease allele because it's dominant, and we'll call the lowercase a allele the allele with no disease. And in autosomal dominant disorders, the disease gene is dominant. This means that both heterozygotes who have only one copy of the disease gene and homozygotes who have two copies, they both have disease. Shown on the screen is an example of an autosomal dominant pedigree. Note that males and females are affected equally. Note that when there is one parent with disease, there's a 50% chance that the offspring will have disease. For example, this woman here has disease and 50% of her offspring are sick. This man here has disease and 50% of his children have disease. Notice also that male-to-male transmission occurs in this pedigree. This is a male with disease, and he has passed along the gene to his son. This is an important fact because this lets us know this is not an X-linked disease. Males always pass a Y chromosome on to their son. They do not pass an X chromosome on to their sons. Therefore, if male-to-male transmission occurs in a pedigree, it means that the disorder cannot be X-linked. Shown on this slide are some examples of autosomal dominant conditions. These include familial hypercholesterolemia, Huntington's disease, Marfan syndrome, hereditary spherocytosis, achondroplasia, and there are many, many other examples. You should be aware that some autosomal dominant conditions demonstrate what's known as incomplete dominance, or they are said to be semi-dominant. This means that the heterozygote phenotype is different from the homozygote. It usually means that a heterozygote has a less severe form of the disease compared to a homozygote who has two disease genes. That person will have a more severe form of the condition. The classic example of a disorder with incomplete dominance is achondroplasia. This is an autosomal dominant disorder of bone growth. Heterozygotes for the disease gene will develop dwarfism. If you watch the television show Game of Thrones, the actor Peter Dinklage, who plays Tyrion Lannister, has achondroplasia, and that's why he has short stature. Homozygotes for the disease allele have a fatal condition and usually will not live beyond the first few months of life, and thus the disorder is said to be semi-dominant, meaning that the condition is different depending on whether a person is a heterozygote or homozygote. Another example is familial hypercholesterolemia. Heterozygotes have an elevated total cholesterol in the 350 to 550 range. Homozygotes have a higher total cholesterol in the 650 to 1000 range. Now let's talk about X-linked disorders. In these disorders, the disease gene is found on the X chromosome and is usually denoted as X sub D. These disorders will always affect males if they inherit an abnormal copy of the X chromosome. That's because males have only one X chromosome. Females can have one disease X chromosome and one normal X chromosome, and in this situation, the effect on the individual is variable. In X-linked recessive conditions, females are usually not affected, although we'll talk about some exceptions to this. In X-linked dominant conditions, females can be affected because the disease gene is dominant. So first, let's look at a pedigree for an X-linked recessive disorder. In this condition, all males with the disease gene have disease. They have no normal X chromosome to balance out the disease gene. Most females who have the disease gene are carriers and therefore will not be affected. And if you look at this pedigree, only males are sick. This is typical of an X-linked recessive condition that runs through a family. In X-linked recessive disorders, there is no male-to-male transition. I mentioned this earlier, but all fathers pass a Y chromosome on to their sons. So note in this pedigree that even though this male individual here has disease, he has not passed it on directly to any of his children. The only way any of his offspring can get disease is if they get it indirectly through a female who is an offspring of an affected father. Sons of heterozygous mothers have a 50% chance of being affected. So for example, we know that this female right here must be carrying the disease gene because she has an affected son, and she is going to pass that diseased X chromosome on to 50% of her sons. And classic examples of X-linked recessive disorders are hemophilia A and B. These tend to run in families, and they tend to occur largely in males. In X-linked recessive disorders, females can very rarely develop disease. There are two ways this can happen. Usually it will only occur if a female is homozygous for the diseased X chromosome. This means her father must have the illness and her mother must be a carrier. The second way a female can potentially develop an X-linked recessive disorder is if she develops what's known as skewed lionization. So let's talk about that now. Lionization is a process that occurs in females and results in inactivation of one of the X chromosomes. Females have two copies of X chromosomes found in the cells of their body. One of those chromosomes in each cell will undergo a process called lionization by which it becomes inactive. Through this process, the X chromosome is condensed into a structure called heterochromatin, and the DNA in that X chromosome becomes methylated and therefore becomes inactive. In other words, all the genes on that one X chromosome become inactive. This will create something you can see under the microscope called a bar body, which is found in the cells of females. It's a dark spot on the periphery of the nucleus. An example is shown here on the screen. That represents the inactive X chromosome in that particular cell. Lionization is a random process. Different X chromosomes become inactive in different cells in the body of a female. This occurs early in development at a stage when the embryo has less than 100 cells, and it results in X mosaicism in females. In other words, different cells in the body will have a different X chromosome that is working compared to others. This can potentially lead to symptoms in females of an X-linked recessive disorder if the process results in what's known as skewed lionization, where relatively more of the healthy X chromosomes become inactive and relatively greater numbers of the diseased X chromosomes are active, especially in the tissues where that X chromosome can cause disease. Now let's talk about the pedigree for an X-linked dominant disorder. These disorders can occur in both sexes even though they are X-linked because the diseased X chromosome is dominant. A special feature of these pedigrees is that every daughter of affected males has disease. This is because all daughters get an X chromosome from their father, and affected fathers must give their diseased X chromosome to their daughter. So for example, let's focus on this male individual here. He must have one diseased X chromosome and one normal Y chromosome. For him to have a female offspring, he must pass his X chromosome, which is diseased, onto his daughter, and therefore she will definitely develop disease. The pedigree of an X-linked dominant disorder can mimic an autosomal dominant pattern. However, a key difference is one that I mentioned earlier. In autosomal dominant disorders, there can be male-to-male transmission. In X-linked dominant disorders, there is no male-to-male transmission. That's because fathers always pass a Y chromosome on to their sons. So in this pedigree shown on the screen here, we have an affected male here. He has not passed it on to his son. He cannot do this because this is an X-linked disorder and he is always going to pass a Y chromosome onto his male offspring. X-linked dominant disorders tend to be more severe among males because they do not have a second X chromosome that is normal. And the classic example of an X-linked dominant disorder is the Fragile X syndrome. I talk about this in more detail in the video on trinucleotide repeat disorders, but it is the second most common genetic cause of intellectual disability after Down syndrome. It is more severe in males. It often has features of autism, and children have a characteristic facial appearance like this boy shown on the screen here. They have a long, narrow face with large ears and a large jaw. Moving on, let's talk about mitochondrial genes and what a mitochondrial disorder can look like on a pedigree. You should be aware that each mitochondria found in our body contains some of its own DNA, which is called mtDNA, and this codes for mitochondrial proteins. If there is a mutation in the genes coding for mtDNA, the organs that are most affected will be the central nervous system and skeletal muscle because these rely heavily on aerobic metabolism. Mitochondrial genes display a unique genetic phenomenon known as heteroplasmy. It turns out there are multiple copies of mtDNA in each mitochondria, and in addition, there are multiple mitochondria found in each cell. If all of the mtDNA in a particular cell is normal or abnormal, that cell is said to display homoplasmy. The more common condition, however, is that cells display a mixture of normal and abnormal genes in the mitochondria, and this is called heteroplasmy. And because of heteroplasmy, mutant mitochondrial gene expression is highly variable. It depends on the amount of normal versus abnormal genes in each mitochondria, and also the number of mutant mitochondria in each cell or tissue. Shown on the screen is an example of what a mitochondrial disorder pedigree could look like. In order to understand this pedigree, you need to appreciate that all of our mitochondrial DNA is inherited from our mothers. Sperm mitochondria is eliminated from embryos, and we only get genes for our mitochondria from our mothers. Therefore, if you look at this pedigree, you can see that a mother passes on the disease to her children, as in this example at the top. You can also see this mother here passing it on to her children. But note that affected fathers never pass it on to any of their children. That's because all of the mitochondrial genes come from the mother, who is not affected when there is an affected father that's a parent. Now, the expression of disease in the offspring of an affected mother is variable. If the mother is homoplasmic for the mutant DNA, then all children will have the mutation. However, if the mother is heteroplasmic, which is often the case, then the expression in the children can be variable. And because of this phenomena of heteroplasmy, the expression of mitochondrial disorders in offspring is highly variable. Mitochondrial disorders are very rare. One type that you're sometimes asked about on boards are the mitochondrial myopathies. This is a collection of rare disorders that all present with weakness, which is myopathy, also confusion because of central nervous system effects, and also lactic acidosis because you cannot perform oxidative phosphorylation if your mitochondria are abnormal. There's a wide range of clinical disease expression for all the reasons I mentioned on the last slide. And the classic hallmark of a mitochondrial myopathy is the presence of red ragged fibers. This is seen on muscle biopsy with special stains. It's caused by compensatory proliferation of mitochondria in response to the mitochondria that are not working normally. As a result, there is an accumulation of mitochondria in muscle fibers that you can visualize under the microscope, and the mitochondria will appear bright red against a blue background with special stains. And this is an example of what red ragged fibers can look like on a muscle biopsy in someone with a mitochondrial myopathy. I'll finish this module by mentioning that many genetic disorders do not involve a single gene. Instead, they involve multiple genes and display what's known as polygenic inheritance. This is because many traits and diseases depend on multiple genes. For example, your height depends on many more than a single gene. Whether or not you develop heart disease or cancer also depends on the interplay of multiple different genes. So many of these disorders will run in families, but they will not follow one of the classic Mendelian patterns we've seen in this video, and that's because the disorders are polygenic. Here's a slide just to illustrate this point. Let's imagine 3 genes A, B, and C all influence the height of an individual, and we have 2 parents with a mixture of different alleles of A, B, and C who have a marriage, and they have a number of offspring. Some of the offspring will be very, very short because they will inherit only the lowercase alleles. Some of the offspring can be very, very tall because they will inherit only the uppercase alleles. And the rest of the offspring will be in the middle somewhere because they'll have a mixture of the 3 genes. And this is what you can see for any type of trait, including diseases that are polygenic. In addition to being polygenic, many traits or diseases are what's known as multifactorial. In these conditions, genes, lifestyle, and environment all conspire to create disease. And this is seen in many diseases like diabetes, coronary disease, and hypertension. It's not just a factor of what genes you inherit from your family. It's also got to do with your lifestyle, the dietary choices that you make, and the environment in which you live. And these are patterns of disease that are called multifactorial. And that concludes our video on pedigrees.